Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Welcome to another wonderful Wednesday. We hope that your week is going well. At the break, affectionately known as Hump Day. Our topic today, we have quite a few things to talk about today. One, I want to give a shout out to ResCon and Houston, Texas, going on at the end of the month. You don't want to miss it. We got over 50 speakers that are going to be coming and presenting. This is more than just a conference. This is a movement, a vision of our dear Dr. Imam Wazir Ali and the Houston Muslim community. And I just want to say the whole Muslim community coming out to support it at a time where, we need to, for lack of a better word, put a stamp on who we are and establishing our identity and letting people know, hey, listen, we're here. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world. We are going to be a steady presence. In the words of Imam Wazir Muhammad, we are going to be the people that give that sober language in the time of chaos. That's one. And number two, Preach did not start the live, but it's okay. I just started. So Donna, were you telling me to start the live? Probably so. We did that. So today's topic is the lost art of valuing time. Now, let me explain when I say the lost art of valuing time. Imagine a marketplace. Imagine a marketplace and the competition is for your attention, but more so the competition is for your time. To get your attention leads naturally to a pathway to getting your time. Now, there's a lot of aspects to this. We've talked about things like cognitive surplus, the amount of time that you actually have that you really, I'm thinking authentically, that is your time. And in the midst of all your days, work, sleep, dealing with family, all these different things, that the authentic piece of time where you remember things, where you react, engage in things, it's a very small amount of. And what we found in the world is that, guess what? People are competing for that time. Now, our topic is the lost art because somewhere along the line, people used to compete for it. Now, we're giving it away. People have figured out an algorithm to help us give away our time. Have you ever been scrolling on Instagram and you say, hey, listen, it's 3:00, I got to be somewhere. And you keep scrolling on Instagram, you look up, it's 5:30. That's that algorithm that keeps you tied into Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, watching videos, the demon in the details of content, if you will. Good content, bad content. It's the fact that people want your time. Why? Because time is about monetization. People are able to turn to these mega companies, corporations, and say, I know how to master other people's time so that we can use it to leverage for your product, your campaign, your movies, whatever it is. The scope is the art of time, valuing time. Now, I have a special guest on. We're going to bring him on. This is one of my super friends. We were hanging out today. Ironically, this topic, we're just laughing about it. The idea of valuing time and being able to talk about it in a holistic way. In the Quran, if you really look at the Quran is a treatise on how you balance time in your life. So you take something like your prayer schedule, the act of having a prayer schedule, a denoted amount of time or a denoted time for when you're supposed to pray. Ramadan. What is Ramadan? Ramadan is built around time. Calendars, the Gregorian calendar, the lunar calendar, time. Now, in religion, time or valuing time has been closely associated with what? Quality of life. Not just for individual quality of life, but also for quality of life of a community, of a family, of business, things like that. The wealth of a nation, I've found over the last 15 years, is how we spend our time. And if we spend our time in a very frivolous way, we have a society, most likely is going to be fraught with all kind of chaos, debauchery, demonic behavior, and just a willfulness, not just to waste time, but to waste your time. So listen, we're going to start the show. We're going to be right back, but I want you to start thinking about the lost art of valuing time, because we're going to talk about how it happens, but also, inshallah, we're going to talk about how we get it back. This is Preacher Moss on the Shout Out Show. Let's roll. So, again, I was just sitting here just thinking about it. You know, one of the biggest benefactors I had with my grandfather is that throughout his entire life, he was never late. Time was a constant presence in his life, and it just hit me never being late with my grandfather and never being late with my aunts. And my mom was never late until she got really, really, later in life, and that was for a Mother's Day event, and I remember it. But that's, she's 81. I just remember maybe one or two times, and the third time had to do with traffic. Just time. But what I want to first do before we get into our subject, I want to make sure that we make time for the people that support our show, our Shout Out Show family. We're going to go right over to, we got Sister Ree. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, little sis? We hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for supporting us. Shout out to you and your family. My main man, Altaf Rashid. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our Canadian envoy to the show, Mr. Straight Up 6 o'clock. We appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Tariff Free coming all the way from Ontario. And we got shout out to Resilience Con. What's going on? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We got an ad we're going to run for you guys, inshallah, before the end of the show. People, make sure you go to Resilience Con, get your tickets. Hit the QR code. Make sure you get your tickets. It's going to be something you do not want to forget. And of course, we have our illustrious executive producer on the line, Sister Satana Whitfield. Without her in the background, this thing does not go. She keeps my hands free and my thoughts flowing. What's going on, sis? Good to see you. And in Instagram land, okay, we got Hijira. Thank you so much. We got Zakia Jones, my niece. What's going on, niece? I'm not gonna be able to make the gender reveal, but is there a pool? I'm just kidding. It's good to see you. I'm happy for you, Muhammad, as always. And we got Sister Dawn Wood, my life. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining. And all these people I mentioned made it to the show on time. All right. So this idea time, I talked about my grandfather. I referenced him because he told me a lot of times that when he was growing up in the South, Orangeburg, South Carolina, Washington, D.C., that Black people were not in ownership of their time. Not having the right to vote, not having the protection law for just the even basic things meant that you were a bystander of time, meaning that your time was tied to white society, the people who had the power. And he said the adjustment was creative narrative. So they did more with less time. They did more with less time. The idea, and if you think about it, the idea in the growth structure from the time of Reconstruction up to the Civil Rights Act, you sit there and wonder, at least I do, how did they get so much accomplished? Because they reassessed the idea of what time meant to them. Meaning that community meant something, so you put it towards time. Family meant something, you put it towards time. In fact, the whole idea of being under the auspices of white supremacy, Jim Crow back then, created a new ground stop for how they spent time. Now, we are in a society where we have so much time we don't know what to do with it. And as a result, people have figured out, or I want to say have assumed that they do know what to do with my time and your time. I say it's one of the vestiges of true religion and foundational religion is based upon understanding what happens when and where. If you go to a masjid on Jummah, there's a certain way that a program is carried out for the Jummah. If you go to the church, There's a certain way that things are carried out at the church, synagogue. It's the same thing, that the protocol is meant. And I always thought it was beautiful when I became Muslim, that when you finished Juma, the idea was that you left off from work, but you went back to work. The idea that work, religiosity were congealed together because you were going back into the community, that you were supposed to take that lesson, that kuppah, and put it in action and engage it in society, not just in the masjid. Two things I thought about, and I'm going to bring our special guest on here in a minute. Two things I thought about when we talk about time, because I'm a comedian and I love jazz. That's another thing, timing. People have figured out some of the rudiments of being able to not understand, but disrupt timing. I would say for the last 15 years, the calibration in the United States in terms of timing has been really, really bad. That A doesn't match up with B the way that B is supposed to match up with C, and so and so. And so we don't get continuity. We don't get fluidity. What we get is a up and down. And what happens is we're not able to faithfully forecast some of the things that's supposed to happen for us. You know, I was talking to my brother, I'm going to bring on, I was watching a guy named Daniel Priestley talk about, how time had eluded a lot of folks because people feel like they're rushed. People feel like they're cramped. People feel like they're competing with nothing. When you're competing with other people, it brings on, of course, the whole ambiance of, speed and things like that, almost like recklessness and anxiety. It has so much to do with the fact that we feel like our time is being valued differently. This happens a lot. You'll see somebody doing something and they're younger than you, and you go, what do they do with their time? You begin to, somehow question what are you doing? What did you do with your time? Or what was your process to get from point A to point B? Well, it's all a mirage. In religion, we say, Allahu Alam. Allah is the best of planners. That's the way it be. But in business, and I'm talking about occupational society, how we live in this society from point A to point B, that's value. That's how people judge one another. Productivity is not about, these days, the quality, but it's the amount of quality product that you put in. Again, time. So look, I have a special guest. I want to say I love this brother. But he's going to talk to you about time. He is an expert on time. Sister Tana, could you bring him in? Sound like him out?
Well, like salam, my brother, Preacher Morse. I am not an expert on time at all, so I was gonna let that be said. But it's a pleasure to be on your show, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you a lot, man. We were talking, like we said, we were talking earlier today about time and how valuable it is, but how so many people take it for granted. They don't understand the importance of time, whether it be with family, whether it be with the job, whether it be, it's very precious. I spent a lot of time basically letting someone else control my time. Okay. And that time I can never give back. So I definitely agree with it's one of the most it's one of the most important things on that a person can do is value their own time and value someone else's time.
Would you like to expand on your story a little bit?
My story is you value your time, man. Value the people that you have around you, and don't take it for granted.
Okay. All right. So, let me throw this out. You and I we're in the same space. What do you think happened to that narrative about how time is spent? Like all of us have stories about having to be home when the street lights came on, which meant that we didn't have watches. we didn't have watches. We had learned behavior. But it was so important because being home when the street lights came on, it bought certain things. It brought you into family life. You know, when I had to be home, streetlights came on. It meant that dinner was being served. You know what I mean?
I do.
And that was family time, sitting around the table with mom, dad, find out how everybody's day went. Of course, you know, my mom would mess my day up. She's like, "What you do in school today?" I'm like, "Oh, we really gonna do this? How was that test? We really gonna do this?" Um, I wasn't the greatest high school student, people. But I think in a, I want to say in a very metaphysical way, you know, that the shift has happened. Like I run into people when I'm talking, sometimes I run into people, and if I'm not careful to distinguish the conversation or frame the conversation right, you'll have people who believe that they own your time. Has that happened to you?
Yes, many a time. Many a times. And I want to tell you that the people that my uncle told me, my uncle listened, he said that no slight to anybody's salary, whatever. He said, but always make sure that you get you if you can stay hourly, because if your salary, a person can work you to death, and you're only gonna get that amount of money. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're hourly, your time, you're always making money. And I kind of took that to heart. So yeah, I man, it's so important. Also, too, you spoke earlier about time, and it's like right now, kids, the phone, the society we live in is everything's on your phone.
Yeah. And,
So
and the one thing we
there's
don't look
no
at, the one thing we
man.
look at, one thing we look at on our phone that we take for granted is the clock. We look at everything else. The clock is, oh, that's what it is. It literally has no meaning there. I'm talking the connection to functionality. You know, the one of the things they talk about now is just the loss amount of, you know, the mass amount of lost man hours for how people spend their time. So and this is the thing I thought about too. You know, I know I'm older, so I have to be careful that I'm not being a cranky uncle. You know what I mean? Uh, I'm, I'm not being the cranky uncle, but it just seems like, and you can correct me, man, and anyone else that wants to correct me. Shout out to JT, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It just seems like, particularly in the last election, that people were more than willing to give their time to foolishness, to be led around. You know what I mean? There's nothing worse than people who see something is wrong, but they don't correct it. They think somebody else is going to correct it. They think it's somebody else's problem until it's their problem. So this whole idea of engagement is something that's off kilter too. You know, we used to say revolutions. You know, revolutions are built from emotion. You know, revolutions are built from the spirit. That there's a balance that says what is right and what is wrong, and the engagement, because there's a common good, or people are seeking a common good. You know, we have all the things that are going on in the news, and you know, we have all these things that are fighting for our attention, and fighting for our attention. And so I kind of feel like, you know, is there a way? Because we talk about the lost art of value in time, but it was an art. You know, you made value, you made things in your life valuable for how you were going to designate things. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, Brother Mikhail?
I do.
You know,
I do.
we talk about our parents, right? Our parents will work what, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. But on Sunday they made what, time to go to church, right? Um, the whole idea, you know what's missing these days? Like Sunday dinner. Something that was centering, like Sunday dinner. Like we don't have that anymore. Everything is fast. I think one of the worst things for uh community was Uber Eats.
Mhm.
Or the advent of takeout or delivery. People are eating on the run. You know, eating together used to be a very communal thing. We don't do it, but it symptomatically showed that people were making time to do so. No, So what do you think, Brother Mikhail? What can we do? We're talking about the lost art. How can we get it back? Give me an example. What do you think?
Man, if I had the answer to that question, I can guess that it goes back to it has to go back. It has to go back to us. I mean, I don't think the new generation values and understands the value of time. So I think it's up to us to go back and help explain what we're explaining right now, what we're talking about right now to the younger generation, and still it, even in our own families, and still instill the Sunday dinners back. It has to start somewhere, but I
Well,
feel that we need to go back to how we were raised.
I think it. You know what? I think it goes to core values.
Exactly.
I think it's goes. I think like I think it goes back to core values in a very meticulous way. I remember, when I was young, having to check on the elderly, right? Sunday dinner, you had to take a plate someplace. Now you're really, really young. All you knew you were taking a plate someplace. We had a lady named Miss Hill. She had a massive stroke. We used to take food up to her and her caretaker. Now you're young. You don't know what the aspects of a stroke are, but it was not enough to take the food there. I would have to sit with Miss Hill, and talk to her. In essence, spend time. Not understanding that she couldn't speak, not understanding that she couldn't react, verbalize what her feelings were. But my grandmother would make me stay there. And I used to get frustrated, of course, because I was young and stupid. But it is the idea of contact. I want to say compartmentalizing time, that it does have a bit of importance. It does have a bit of importance. We do the shout out show, right? For those that don't know, we're in year 6 of the shout out show. So if you took all the man hours between Sister Satana and I, and you say, oh my gosh, look at this, look at how this time has been spent. I'm going to say something. Sister Satana and I have done about 2,000 shows, right? Satana's about right? We've never had an argument. We've never had an argument. We've never had a disagreement. And I felt like in this scenario, I felt like because, we had a very clear understanding that we respected one another's time. I don't well, there's been a couple times on the show I got caught up, just getting to the show. Sometimes it's been late, traffic. One time I was overseas, I just forgot. I'm gonna be honest. But that's out of 2,000 shows. That's out of 2,000 shows. And I think the thing that's really important is that it doesn't come from Sister Satana and I. It comes from my parents. It comes from the people that raised us, and they made the idea of respecting time a core value. One of the art of, if you will, the art of valuing time is that it becomes a part of your core value. It becomes a part of, just imagine now, I wasn't born Muslim. Think of the transition of not just praying 5 times a day, but strategically praying at parts of the day, right? The ordering of time, and it's just something to be thought about. I'm going to bring Brother Mikhail back in. Mikhail, what do you think about that? We're Muslim, and I'm going to put you on the space here. We're Muslim,
yes,
and we weren't born Muslim.
I was born Muslim.
No, you weren't.
Yeah, I was born Muslim. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
No, my fault, brother. I thought.
Yeah, but no worries. But I agree with you 100%. The 5 times when you pray 5 times a day, that's time. That's to keep your mind focused on Allah. so that you don't get distracted about frivolous stuff. Because 5 times out of the day, you got to bump your head, you got to pray, and that keeps you in the remembrance of Allah. So it it should keep your mind away from shaitan and all the worldly stuff and all the worldly things. But one thing I was thinking about was, Preacher Moss, in school they teach economics, math, science. I think they should implement a class on time, because all of those things go into time is everything.
I think, I feel, this is me, time is a discipline.
Absolutely. I was just about to say that.
Time is a discipline, man. And I know I would get physically irritated when I wasn't on, you know what I mean? It was one thing for me to be not on time. It was something else for someone else to make me late. I used to go back and forth about that. I was like, I really can't understand how that is. Hold on a minute. We got a comment. Let me see. Great conversation. Time seems to be wasted because the length of the day hasn't changed, but the amount of stimulus we subject ourselves to. 100% right. 100% right. The person that sent this legacy properties, you are right on. Yeah, you literally introduce disruption, like chaos. Think about in Europe, at a certain point in time, there was no such thing as property rights, right? There was no such thing as property rights. Somebody throws up a fence and they say, now this is my property. And you create a situation of people who have property and don't have property. This leads to the whole idea of rent and bartering. You don't have something, you need to barter to get what I have. And it creates a scenario where you have to restructure how you spend your time. Legacy properties, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. I said legacy properties. Okay, thank you, Lewis. Legacy properties. But I think there's a lot to that, though. There's a lot to that. We were talking about it earlier today. I was talking about a friend of mine that, he had a state-sponsored vacation for about 20 plus years. And when he came out, our conversation was really about how he was going to calibrate himself to this whole idea of new time. These freedoms that are tied into it are not necessarily freedoms. Would you agree?
I definitely agree.
These freedoms that they're giving you, they're not freedoms. They're impediments. These are things to make sure that you are, these things to make sure that you're not going to have a direct route, a direct pathway to be able to frame value for yourself. One of the things I learned in business, like you have to pivot to make sure you are inclusive of things. And one of the things in business they talk about all the time, what does it talk about? In big business and corporations, executives, they talk about work-life balance. And the reason they talk about work-life balance because there's been a displacement of how you spend your time. So I am definitely going to let you guys ruminate on that. Brother Mikael, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
And we're going to rock out with another commercial for Resilience Con. And we will see you guys next Wednesday. Thank you guys so much. Everybody in Richmond, Islamic Center, Virginia, Richmond, this Saturday, your brother's going to be there with Muhammad Jabber. We're going to be there with Brother Jamil. We're going to have a great time. Come out, make sure you get your tickets and support us. We appreciate you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, Muslim comedian OG. Check this out. I'm in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, Chocolate City, letting you know that at the end of January, we got Resilience Con. This is a vision of Dr. Imam Wazir Ali, but this is a community project, a community trust, and I will be there with a special comedy show featuring some of my favorite comedians going to be coming out supporting the cause. Now, this is what I need you to do. I need you to get your tickets for Resilience Con, but I also need you to donate. So if you give $25, maybe give another $25. We're trying to build here, brothers and sisters. That's something we haven't done in a long time. In our community, we're trying to build. So I'm asking you to please get your tickets. And if we get enough tickets, we're going to have a comedy show. This is going to be a landmark comedy show, not like some of the other ones you see. I'm taking off the bow tie. I'm taking off the suit. I'm putting on my Timberlands. I'm putting on my Levi jeans. I'm putting on my paperboy hat. And we're going to get down. We're going to talk about it like we've been wanting to talk about it for a long time. I'm going to be saying some things that you guys been wanting to hear. Listen, get your tickets. I will see you there. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Just stop looking at me. Get your doggone tickets.